Director of PR, Pearl. Here. Our college council rep. Here. Our pro temp. Here. Senator Ahmed. Here. Senator Candela. Here. Senator Chaput. Here. Senator Cortez. Here. Senator Fisher. Senator Velez. Senator Wu. Here. Senator Zapata. Advisor George. Advisor Wadsworth. Webb. CFB. Wildcat Media. Esports. Our SAC rep is not here, and our Res Life rep is also not here. We will now move into the approval of our minutes and agenda. Does anyone have any discussion on our minutes and agenda? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we will move into voting. All in favor of approving our minutes and agenda, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 7-0-0. We will now move into our announcements. We still have an election going on. Be sure to vote, everyone. That will end next week. We are also extending our OrgCAD applications by a week. Please check the campus announcement to get the link to the form, and please send us an application if you are interested in running. Now moving on to guest speakers. We have no guest speakers. Now moving on to executive reports. Our president.
No report.
Right. Our vice president has no report. Our treasurer.
Hi everyone. As you all know, the end of the semester is rapidly approaching, and this means stipends. You'll probably be seeing an email soon about filling out a direct deposit form. Again, this form goes straight to auxiliary services. I do not want your bank account information. Please do not give it to me. You'll probably be receiving an email. Last time there were some concerns on auxiliary services part with being able to properly read the numbers and names listed on the form, so it's just a little easier if it's typed and you submit it over email. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Our secretary. Our chief justice.
Hello everyone. I just would like to formally announce that the petition regarding audience retention has been approved, and you should expect to see some form of legislation on the table next week. Thank you.
Our director of PR.
Hey everyone, I got the new name tags printed, so we'll get them after the meeting.
Our college council rep.
So next Tuesday, I have my first college council presentation for second. I will, if anyone wants me to talk about anything about the student body, the organizations, shoot me an email by the end of the week. That's all I have.
Our advisors.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to remind everybody that it is Safe Sex Week on campus. So if you've been going to the events, you'll know that there are raffle tickets being given out. Those raffle tickets you can bring to the Res Life Final Fling to win a prize. The 3 prizes that will be raffled off are an iPad, Beats Studio Pros, and a Beats Pill speaker. And then if you go tomorrow to Safe Sex Olympics, which if you can bring a team of 2. If you don't have somebody else, we can pair you with somebody. But if you come to Kinsella, the time is 4 to 6. We have tons of different games. It's almost like a relay race. And the prizes for that, both partners, if you win first place, we'll get a pair of Beats Studio Pros. Second place, you'll win a JBL speaker. And third place is a bundle between a Lego set, a comfy, and a pillow pet. So we hope to see everybody there to conclude Safe Sex Week. We're really excited about it. So thank you very much.
Budget committee.
Hi everyone. As I'm sure everyone who has read the agenda, which is hopefully every single person in this horseshoe knows, the budget is on the table. We're not going to pass it this week. It needs to be on the table for at least 2 weeks. Hopefully it'll be fairly straightforward. Budget committee tried to include a lot of notations and explanations for the amounts that you see in that budget. You'll notice that overall there were significant reductions in our budget. This is because our operating budget, right, the amount of money that we have to spend has gone down significantly, We expected 583,000 and change. This year, we got a lot closer to 530. So that's the amount that we put in for the following year. And I'm sure there will be more discussion once we actually reach that resolution. Just because the budget is finished does not mean budget committee is finished. We'll still be meeting tomorrow afternoon, 2 to 4 p.m. We have a number of changes we're looking to make with regards to financial policy, and those will hopefully be on the table, if not next week, the following week. Thank you very much.
Class Gift Committee.
We have finalized the resolution. It will be on the table for next week. Thank you.
Food Committee.
One that we meet every week at 11 on the second floor dish lobby. And also feel free to, give your positive feedback using the QR codes that are spread around campus. And yeah, I hope to see you all next week. I yield.
Policy Committee. No report. Safety and Facilities.
We'll be meeting tomorrow at 11 in the Student Center conference room. Thank you.
The rest of those people aren't here, so I'm gonna move on. Is that all right? The rest of okay. Right. Student Center Advisory. Student Success and Technology. And Wellness and Inclusion. Right, moving on to org reports. Webb.
Hi, everybody. This week we had our summer bingo on Tuesday, so if you came, thank you. Tonight we have our painting and glass painting event from 7 to 9 here in the NPR. Also this Saturday we have our field day that's in the fields behind Oriskany. We're partnering with Res Life with that, and it's from 12 to 2. Next week starts Where's Walter Week, so we're hiding Walter around campus, so have a look out on our socials for clues to find Walter so you can win prizes that lead up into Apocalypse Week. And then countdown to Apocalypse Week is 10 days today, by the way. So thank you, everybody. I yield.
CFB.
Extra funding requests have come to a close for the 24-25 academic year as of last week. Only going through a couple exceptions the year far as they were put in at the literal last minute. Those have been mostly seated or will be done by the end of this week. And all that remains now for the CFB to go through is community service and other forms, of which the majority of clubs have not submitted or done anything regarding. I yield back to the chair.
Wildcat Media.
Please join us on 4/18 in the NPR for our next event. We will be giving out prizes.
And esports. Right. Student Center Advisory. Do you want to give a committee report? Okay.
Very short report today. Student Center Advisory Committee met last Thursday for April 3rd, 2025. In the meeting, we discussed about getting possibly new arcade machines, some new arcade machines for the game.
All right. We will now move on to old business. There is no old business. We will now move into new business. Resolution 2425-34. What should I do if the person reading isn't? I could just, okay.
It goes to pro temp.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Resolution 2425-34, Pro Temp Mavros.
Resolution 2425-34. Resolution C, Content Clarity Crusade. The purpose of this resolution is to establish clear transparency of any sensitive content covers within all classes. We, the Senate of Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve. Whereas students with trauma or mental health challenges encounter distressing content without warning, leading to emotional harm and academic struggle. And whereas the absence of trigger warnings create barriers in accessibility for students, forcing them to navigate unnecessary challenges, therefore be it enacted, degree works will include trigger warnings for classes that may contain sensitive information in the description. And enacted, all classes course syllabi will be required to outline sensitive content and when it will be discussed. Be it resolved that students at SUNY Polytechnic Institute will benefit from a more transparent, inclusive, and supportive learning environment, and be it further resolved that SUNY Polytechnic Institute reaffirms its commitment to inclusivity by implementing policies that enhance student well-being and accessibility. Be it finally resolved, should these measures be successfully implemented, students will experience a more informed and equitable academic journey. If these measures are not enacted, students will continue to face unnecessary obstacles that hinder their academic success. I yield.
All right. Is there any discussion for this resolution? Our treasurer.
I noticed that you specified degree works. I understand why you did that, but course descriptions and a lot of course information is also available through Banner. Do you think it would be better to look at changing the language so that it more broadly reads the registration software provided by either the Office of the Registrar or, something a little more broad? I yield.
Our president.
So building off that, I feel like we could include both, but say, an example and saying it's the software that is used by the registrar. I yield.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Senator Chaput.
Motion to amend the enacted statement just discussed to say what was just stated.
Can you say it again for me, please?
I did not have specific wording in mind. I would change it to be enacted all registration software that includes course information will also include trigger warnings for classes that may contain sensitive information in the description.
All right. Do we have a second? Seconded by, would it be because Forrest made it, so. Do I have a second? Seconded by our pro temp. We are now in discussion on the motion to change DegreeWorks to all software, all registration software that includes course information. Is there any discussion on that motion? Our president.
Can I entertain an amendment to the motion to include an example, DegreeWorks and Banner?
All right, do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Chaput. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Wu. All right. Is there any discussion on the amendment to that motion? Senator Chaput.
This would be following the, in parentheses, correct? Following that, okay.
Our advisors.
I feel as though I should just make note that DegreeWorks is not a registration platform. It is within the registrar and academic realm, but it is not a registration platform. I just felt as though, for clarity, I yield.
Also, when you guys raise your hands, can you please really put them up? It's kind of hard to. Thank you. All right. Is there any more discussion? Our treasurer.
I think it's clear what it's referring to. DegreeWorks does provide information on classes that you have registered for and may register for, although you can't directly register through DegreeWorks. You still have that information available, and from my understanding of the word registration, that does fall under that definition. I yield.
Is there any more discussion for this amendment? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are now into the motion, the amended motion. Is there any more discussion on that? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we'll move into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are now back into the resolution as a whole. Is there any more discussion on the resolution? Senator Wu.
Is there a timeline for when this will be completed, like next semester, the semester after?
Our president.
So as per the definition of resolution, it's kind of just us really asking them to do it. We can't really put anything into effect. From my understanding, Student Success has been meeting with the provost to make sure these changes do happen. I've also been talking about these changes with the provost to keep him kind of in the loop, as well as while he's in the loop with the committee. So I know it's really out of our hands once this is passed, if it is passed, and it goes to the provost and the other offices that they work with. I yield.
Is there anything else? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move into voting on the resolution as a whole. All of those in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. All Right, moving on, Resolution 2425-35, Pro Temp Mavris.
Senate Resolution number 2425-35, Resolution Web Blind Transfers. The purpose of
Oh,
this...
hold up. You need a second.
My
Because
bad.
this wasn't supported by a committee. That's okay. Seconded by Senator Fisher. You can now go on.
Resolution Web Blind Transfers. The purpose of this resolution is to transfer money from various lines in Web that will go unused into Web's Apocalypse Week line. We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve, whereas the Wildcat Events Board has leftover funds from various lines and wishes to use these funds to support student programming during Apocalypse Week. Therefore, be it enacted, the Student Government at Utica Senate considers and confirms the transfer of $761.58 from Webb's Casino Night line into Webb's Apocalypse Week line, $557.00 from Webb's Free Movies line into Webb's Apocalypse Week line, $6,700.00 from Webb's School Outings line into Webb's Apocalypse Week line, $6,000.00 from Webb's Seasonal/Homegrown line into Webb's Apocalypse Week line, and $920.00 from Webb's Winter Sports line into Webb's Apocalypse Week line, for a total of $14,938.58 that shall be transferred from the preceding lines into Webb's Apocalypse Week line. Therefore, be it resolved. Be it resolved, the above lines will be considered reduced in funds, and the Apocalypse Week line will have an additional $14,938.58. And be it finally resolved, the Wildcat Events Board will be able to better cater to students at SUNY Poly.
Is there any discussion on the line transfer? Senator Chaput?
So I'd like to just to Webb for this one. This is a lot of money that's being transferred out of these lines. Is this just because it was an odd, like, last semester and everything, or like why does there so much money left over in these lines?
The reason there's so much money left over is for one specifically, casino night, we used pretty much all that money that we could on the prizes, and then just because of the amount that was left over, we put the dealers into Apocalypse Week line. So from the prizes that were took out, we were left with that money. Free movies, we used it all we could, so we're left with that much left. It's not going to be used for the rest of the semester, so we're moving it. School outings, the same thing, because of how much pricing was this year. We couldn't afford to do a second trip, so we're just going to take that money that's left over. And then same with seasonal homegrown. There's so much money left over because we did more contracted events this year than homegrown, which obviously next year we're going to try and figure that out better. I yield.
Our advisors.
I understand that the cost of the school outing, so like the bus trip that typically happens in the spring, I understand it was beyond what you have allocated here for the $6,700. But I think with a remaining balance of $14,938, it feels like maybe there was enough money. If we had shifted a little bit of money from seasonal and homegrown into school outings, we certainly could have covered that, or really combined a couple of these lines to be able to provide for that. It's hard to say there wasn't enough money when we say that there's almost $15,000 left. So I yield.
Our advisors again.
I'll just, to build off of that a little bit, even if we couldn't do something like large scale and do some like a New York City or a Salem, in the past we've done smaller trips to smaller locations, like Lake George, or we've taken students to all sorts of different places. Destiny USA is another popular one. So we could have done something smaller scale too, just to throw that out there. I yield.
Webb.
Just says that is going into our planning for next year, just so everybody does know. We have already started budgeting out how we're going to be using that money differently and more smaller trips, just so that's out there. I yield.
CFP.
Why is so much money being put into this single event? Because, I mean, $80,000, that's like, roughly speaking, like almost a sixth of the budget. Because the budget's around $500 and some odd thousand. Why is $80,000 being spent on a single day or week of events? It seems like a lot of money getting thrown around for a limited amount of time. These events could be used for an entire semester to increase the interaction with students. Yield back.
Webb, do you want to respond?
I can give my personal opinion and also Webb's opinion. as my position in seeing of how Web is running this year and previous years, we wanted to make sure that Apocalypse Week could be bigger for the students. We wanted to offer more. We wanted to make it bigger because we had hyped it up so much last year, and it was such an amazing event last year, but students had told me that they were expecting so much more. With how much we hyped it up, they were expecting something bigger. And so I was like, this year maybe we can go a little bit bigger, the way we're budgeting it out, maybe we could do this. I do understand it is a lot of money. It is crazy amount of money for a whole week of events. We just wanted to make it better for the students, bigger opportunities, offer it more. So yeah, I yield.
Our advisors. Bless you.
Bless you. So I have a couple of concerns beyond the one that I already listed. I have to wholeheartedly agree that it's an extreme amount of money to be used. I mean, Apocalypse Week aside, Carnival Day itself being $66,000 is a lot. And I have yet to see, after even asking repeatedly, for a backup plan. There's no backup plan that has been shared as to whether these are weather dependent. And if we don't have a good weather day, it's been snowing this week. I mean, I think anything could happen at the end of April, truly. I'm very concerned with the amount of money that is being put into one day minus the rest of the week. $66,000 is huge. It was $80,000. That's almost half of your whole year's budget. I just have a lot of concerns with this, and I don't think without contracts, like you just said, we're 10 days out. We don't, as of this morning, we didn't have Carnival Day contracts, which means that the logistics team isn't able to plan appropriately. Facilities staff hasn't been able to plan appropriately. We don't have overtime in place. There's just a lot of pieces that are going. They're going to have to get pulled off really quickly, and I think we really have to stop asking for emergency action by all these other offices to pull off events that take a lot of time to plan because it's $66,000. I yield.
Web.
We do have those contracts. Scott had gotten back to me about that, and then there's also our backup plans with Scott. He said if it comes down to it and it starts raining, we can either one, shift the day to a different day, or two, get a refund and just have the inside stuff, which everything that's not rides can pretty much be brought inside. It's just talking about buildings. I've been emailing back and forth with Gumby to try and figure out that part. Okay. And then otherwise, I would just say, once again, with the money thing, I get it. It's a pretty big portion of our budget. It just really is. We wanted to make this so much bigger and more fun for the students. I yield.
Senator Chaput.
Why can't the field house happen?
This time of year, it's really hard, and I think 10 days out, if we don't have the approval already, then it's not going to happen. They tend to hold it because of practices and other things that have to happen inside there. I mean, with athletics, right? We've never in many, many years, I don't want to say never because that's not true, that is a lie. In many years, they have not been able to commit just based on the spaces that they need to hold for our student athletes. And I think if we've been asking, do you know what, if Erica says that she's been asking, and I believe that you have, I know the response is challenging to get an answer to that space, but I think if 10 days out, if we don't have a yes, then we don't have a yes. Do you know what I mean? I would love to see it in the field house. I used to play in the field house myself, so I totally get it. It's a perfect space for it, but if they won't commit to giving it to us, then we can't count on that. I yield.
Our treasurer.
From a timing perspective, right, obviously this is much later than I think anyone in the room, including all of our web representatives, would like. The reserves poll that was passed to help finance was originally passed in February. There were a lot of delays in getting that passed, and we actually had to reopen discussion. It passed at the same amount, right? We didn't provide additional funding from that reserves pool, but it does make it very challenging to plan when you're uncertain what your funding is. The breakdown that's provided within this resolution is the same breakdown that was a part of the reserves pool that passed 2 weeks ago. That reserves pool has been signed, right? So that $35,000 is a big chunk of this programming, that $80,000, but it doesn't cover it all, right? And with what's already available, we're short, right? We're short about, 14,900 and change. Some of that money we don't have plans to use. Rather than transferring it to other lines, right, school outings, for example, to try and throw together a last-minute bus trip or something of comparable scale, Webb and I are both looking to shift this money to Apocalypse Week to help fund Apocalypse Week and Carnival Day. This is not how we wanted this event to go, right? This is not how we wanted the funding to work out. And I know there have already been conversations amongst Webb and between myself and Webb about what Apocalypse Week is going to look like next year. These conversations have already been happening with the administration as well. And, you know, this is not the ideal. We're not trying to defend this as, yep, nope, this was perfectly planned, perfectly executed. We're trying to do the best that we can with the time that we have. We originally were looking at funding, right, for Apocalypse Week all the way back in February, and there were a lot of delays involved, right? There's no individual, no party at fault here, I would say. I think there were some faults on all sides, especially considering the reserves poll that was was passed at exactly the same amount and was then signed off on. But even so, we're short, right? So we do need this extra funding, and for Apocalypse Week to work as planned, given it's already been planned, in some ways the easiest route is to just move forwards. I yield.
Bob?
I'd also like to say, I am part of logistics every Wednesday at 9:30. It was moved today to 1, so I technically can't go to it today right now, where I was going to talk on Apocalypse Week already being in their line of stuff. So I have logistics for everything. I can't be there because I obviously have this meeting. So I yield.
Senator Chabot?
Moving this back to the $14,000 being currently discussed, if we're short by this amount, how does that work for signing off with the contracts?
If we're able to get the line transfers through, it's fine. If we're not able to get the line transfers through, I have to immediately go back to Scott and tell him these are the things that we have to take out. Me and Grayson have worked on picking which items we're taking out. That would get us to the right amount, though. So I yield back to Senator.
What would those items be?
Give me 2 seconds to pull it up. We would be pulling axe throwing, we would be pulling the dart game, the water game, the rock wall, and basketball challenge is what Scott had gotten me to. If there's others that the money different or anything, I can obviously go back and talk to Scott's very easily to figure that out with me. I yield back to you.
Out of those ones that are being chosen to be potentially cut if this doesn't go through, how many of those are able to be done indoors?
All of them except Scrambler.
All right.
I yield.
All right. Is there any more discussion? Our treasurer.
Just to add again onto that funding piece, right? Like school outings, free movies, given there's not plans to use that money, and as things stand, it's unlikely that money will be used. If it's not transferred, it goes into reserves, which is acceptable, right? It's still available to students, it's still available to student government, and it's important that we have reserves, but the student activities fee is meant for student programming for this year, right? So in some ways, it's better that it gets transferred to a place where we know it will be used rather than leaving it in a place where, at best, it's unlikely to be used. I yield.
Is there any more discussion for the line transfer as a whole? Senator Chabot?
Just sorry, following up on this since I'm not the most knowledgeable on Carnival Day, unfortunately. So if this does not get passed, and those are the ones that aren't going to be, those are the ones that are going to be cut, and since the majority of those were the indoor ones, which indoor things are still going to be continued if there is a rain day and this doesn't get passed?
We would be keeping the jousting, the rage room, the splatter room, the mechanical bull, the balloon artist, the caricature artist, the airbrush artist, and the sign shop. It's possible we could have the food trailer put inside. I don't exactly know how he does that, but we would still have enough inside. And if it came down to it, we could totally switch it around and cut just all the rides and bring games inside too. I yield.
CFB?
This do the large amount of money. What is the oversight if this event is canceled due to weather? Well, how would that money then be handled and transferred back, or where would it go into? Just wondering the sheer amount of money being put into this loan event. If it can't go down, what's going to happen to the money? What's the oversight with it?
Would Weber, our treasurer, like to respond?
I was just going to yield to you, actually, because I don't exactly know that process. So I'm going to yield to Grayson.
It depends on the specifics to some extent of the contract, right? If a rain day is built into it, right, it's possible you would just have Carnival Day simply on another day. If it occurs, and the money, it really depends a little bit on the situation, right? We're able to work with vendors if we need to, right, with regards to a little bit of that negotiation piece. If they're not delivering as promised in the sense that they logistically couldn't get that stuff to work, then we just wouldn't pay for it because we wouldn't have received the service, if that makes sense. I'm going to yield back to Webb.
Every single day since the month started. Right now we are looking at Carnival Day being at 60 degrees. Obviously, we're 2 weeks out. You never know what's going to happen. But we obviously have to have those plan Bs, but I'm looking at right now that we should be okay. I yield.
Our advisors.
I guess I'm still with CFB on this one. If you're saying that you have the contracts, what are the stipulations outlined in the contract to be able to answer that question as to if it can't happen? We don't know if we can change the date because there's no rain date put in QWare for the campus to be ready for a different date. The parking lot has to be cleared days in advance. There's a lot of things that go into it. So I guess my question at the end of the day is, what does the contract say as far as how far in advance we're canceling? And what are the stipulations? Does it say that it has to be provided a different day? Does it say that we get to choose? Does it say that they get to choose what that outcome is? There's a lot of pieces. And if we have those contracts, like, yeah, please feel free to, I guess, check them and see, report back what those details are, because it's really important. I yield.
I would also like to say, I know this is all involves the line transfer, but let's try and keep it just on the transfer itself. Pretty please. Is there any more discussion? Webb?
I just wanted to say about the contract, I'm looking through it. I'm not the best at understanding some of the contracts right now. I have to work with Lauren on this to get the wording better to maybe understand it. But I can find and show to you once we get that all settled where that is in here. I know it's in here because me and Scott had talked about it multiple times. So I yield.
Is there any more discussion? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move into voting. All those in favor of approving the lines transfer, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 5-0-3. Right. Moving on. Resolution 2425-36, Senator Candela.
For resolution number 2425-36.
This is submitted by committee, so you don't need to.
This resolution aims to create a budget for the for student government at Utica and its subsidiary organizations. We, the Senate of SUNY Poly, student government at Utica, do hereby resolve, whereas Budget Committee has created a new budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Therefore, be it enacted, the SU Senate supports and endorses the attached budget to be put in place for the next fiscal year of 2025-2026. Therefore, be it resolved that this budget will allow SU and its subsidiaries to carry out its mission statement and cater to students at SUNY Poly. Attachments.
Is there any discussion for the budget? Our president.
I just had a quick question for the treasurer. Under the reserve section, the estimated fund balance designated for clubs, is that including funds that were donated to clubs not from SGU, or is that excluding those? And yield to our treasurer.
That does include those amounts. It's just essentially the club balances. The way we handle club funds is that clubs roll forward at the end of the year at 100%. So if a club has $40 at the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th, then starting July 1st, it'll still have that $40 available to it. With organizations, it's a little different. Organizations, anything left within their accounts at the end of the year just go into reserves, and then they are budgeted from the operating budget. I would like to entertain a couple of motions if the Senate is willing. I'd like to entertain a motion to modify under back office support under the Student Government at Utica Executive. It's the very first line. It reads Office Manager to change that amount to 54000.00, 54,000.
All right, so moved by Senator Fisher. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Candela. Is there any discussion on increasing the office manager line? Senator Fisher.
I would, but I am also looking to, again, if the Senate is willing, entertain some motions to move money from elsewhere in the budget so that we still stay balanced. For those curious about the reasons behind this increase, was it yesterday? Yesterday, we settled on a price point for our office manager salary starting next year, and what with 401k contributions and payroll taxes, we would need to increase this a little bit. I'm going to yield.
I would just once again like to remind people we are now on a motion to increase the office manager line. Let's keep discussion only on that, please. Part-time Evros.
So your motion to change under the proposed budget column to change 52,000 to 54,000. Do you also want to change the proposed change to be to reflect the change you made from 9,000 to 11,000?
I apologize if I hadn't clarified that initially. That would also constitute a change in the note where it reads 52. It would also read 54. Under the total, it would also read 54. And if you scroll all the way down to, I'm looking for a waterfall change, if that makes sense. Changing that number, given it's actually an Excel spreadsheet, not the PDF, but the spreadsheet that we have, it would also change numbers all the way down the line. So I'm also looking for changes reflected in all of those, which I hope is intuitive. I'm going to yield to Senator Chaput.
Going off of that, what is, just before you make the motions for the other ones, while we're in this motion, what are the other plans for the changed motions?
I wouldn't want to discuss them too much at the moment because they do constitute other motions, but we'd be looking to move money from the Club Funding Board, Wildcat Media, and Wildcat Esports. Or my apologies, Wildcat Events Board, the Club Funding Board, and Wildcat Esports. I yield.
Is there any more discussion on the motion to increase the office manager line? All right, seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move into voting. All those in favor of increasing that line, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are now back into the budget as a whole. Is there any discussion? Our treasurer.
I'd like to entertain a motion to modify under the events line in Wildcat Esports to change the general programming line from the 8,000 it currently is to 7,500, and also update all other values that would affect. I yield.
So moved by Senator Fisher. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Chaput. Is there any discussion on the motion to change the events line from 8,000 to 7,500? Senator Chaput.
Can I just ask for Wildcat Esports input on this? I yield.
The $500 reduction, we're already increasing the events line, so reducing it from 8,000 to 7,500 shouldn't be too much of an issue.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing as there is no more discussion, our advisors, there's no more discussion, right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right, since there's no more discussion, we will move into voting. All those in favor of changing that line? Oh, sorry, did you have? Oh, no, I'm sorry. All those in favor of changing that line, please raise your hand. All who oppose? and all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Sorry, Summer, that was my mistake. Is there anything else? Our treasurer.
More motions. I'd like to entertain a motion to modify under the club funding line in CFB's budget, modify extra funding requests to reduce it from 35,000 down to 34,500. And I'm going to wait to see if someone so moves that before yielding to our CFB representative.
Also, remember to have all the other numbers change.
And waterfall all the way down. Thank you.
Do I have a so moved? So moved by our pro temp. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Chaput. Right. Is there any discussion on that motion? CFB.
I find it actually moronic to cut extra funding more despite increased amount of money you can give to the clubs after the policy dispute we've had this semester. I just find it odd to now cut the amount of money we can now give the clubs after promising the clubs to give them more money in the policies we just passed. The policies I remind that you guys wrote and gave to us to pass. So I just don't get the point of cutting the amount of money to give the clubs while telling them we're going to increase this amount. Some of the things policy disputes I have according to EFR, but I yield to the treasurer.
It's a very fair question. With regards to the amount of funding that clubs receive, this would still represent, if this motion passes, a $5,500 increase to the club funding board during a year in which our budget was cut by almost $50,000 overall. Most of that increase does come from club activations. Now that clubs are getting an increased amount of activation money, part of the hope is that this increased activation money will allow them to reserve their extra funding requests not just for typical operating needs, but for bigger events, special competitions, conferences, travel that they're going to. If clubs could request all the money that they could request, it would be over $200,000, but we don't necessarily have $200,000 that we can give to extra funding requests. Extra funding requests is really whatever we're able to give at the time. I yield.
Senator Chaput.
I got a question. Do you think, given how much less money we're going to be having within this next proposed budget for the fiscal year, it's okay that it's a little bit less despite the increase? I yield to the club funding board.
The amount of increased clubs on campus and the clubs becoming more active due to the lack of support from the larger organizations as a whole, so the clubs have been having to pick up events and other access. So I believe it's needed to have them more funding to do more events on campus, as a lot of the effort's been pushed back onto the clubs now to hold stuff regarding those interest groups. And also with this semester, even with the reserves polls, we've still spent more than what we were allotted in last year's budget, which was cut already. We still spent more than that total amount. Yield to the treasurer.
While that is true, at the moment, I believe CFB has close to $12,000 left available within its extra funding line. That was out of the 40 allocated. CFB started late, right? So they got off the ground a little on the later side, less extra funding requests. Overall, were processed, but they did give out more money. I'm going to yield back to our CFB representative.
Is without a current EFR to get moved, depending upon the interpretation you provided, it could result in that being cut down to around $5,000 in total, which is still less than including the reserve pulls over that $40,000 limit you were given this year. Because if you had additional reserve pulls to give more funding requests to the clubs. I yield back to the chair.
Is there any more discussion on this motion? Our president.
So I think just as a outright net change, the club activations, as our treasurer mentioned, is increasing by $11,000, and the extra funding requests are decreasing by $5,000. So as a net change, it's still increasing by $6,000 that is still going to the clubs. I think it's still a fair change, but that's just my 2 cents, or rather $6,000 cents. I yield.
Is there any more discussion on this motion? Great. Since there is no more discussion, we will move into voting. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. All right, all who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 4-1-3. All right, we are now back into the resolution as a whole. Our treasurer.
More motions. You gotta love them. May I entertain a motion to remove $500 from the seasonal homegrown events line under the events line in Webb's budget and $500 from the school outings line from within Webb's budget? This would put us back in the black, as it were, with regards to our proposed budget. And, of course, waterfall all of those changes down so they affect everything they're supposed to affect.
So moved by Senator Fisher. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Chaput. Is there any discussion on that motion? Senator Chaput.
What, event board's input on this?
My input on this is Grayson asked me where we could take money from, and I gave him my best answer of what I think we could take money from since you've already taken so much. Honestly, I think $500 won't do much in the grand scheme of things. And I'll be able to figure out budgeting if we do the smaller trips, so it'd be easier so we don't go overboard. Like, we'll just maybe do New York City and Salem type beat or something. And then more of like Fort Ricky, Syracuse, and all that other stuff. And then homegrown, as you saw in the line transfers, we didn't use, we had a lot left over, so we could just take from there. So I yield.
All right. Is there any more discussion? CFP.
The reserves, isn't this time to pull from the reserves to keep the budget as it is, given the tighter financial situations? Is this the reason to have a deep reserve to pull from to keep all accessible to the students and everything else without having to do major cuts to them? Yield to the treasurer.
Strictly speaking, you're not supposed to be pulling from reserves. Frankly, not strictly speaking. You should never be pulling from your reserves to balance your budget. Your budget should fit within the operating budget that you're expected to receive, right? Expected revenue is different from actual revenue. We are expecting conservatively, right? We're expecting the same amount that we got this year. If we see an increase in enrollment, the actual revenue that we get may go up. And that's why, as I'm guessing most of y'all remember, a lot of the rationale behind the reserves poll that was passed 2 weeks ago and earlier in February was that we're expecting this amount to go into reserves, so it's appropriate to pull a comparable amount out for programming. Generally speaking, though, you really shouldn't be pulling from reserves for programming. It should really only be emergency situations or major long-standing campus improvements, much like the esports arena. I yield.
Is there any more discussion? Our treasurer.
Just point of clarification, what are we discussing?
We were discussing the motion to change the events line.
Appreciate it.
Seeing as there is no more discussion, we will move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are now back in the resolution as a whole. Is there any more discussion on the budget? Senator Chaput.
So again to Webb. So for the events, I mean, yeah, the budget got slashed pretty heavily for you. So how do, based on your planning right now, I know this is, a while out, but still during planning, how do you plan to still bring events with the limited amount of money? Are you planning for like smaller events or just less frequency, or what are you looking at here?
So not less frequency, because we have in our constitution we have to stick to this.
Yeah.
So, for example, we were going to do an event that was like a Mission Impossible, and we were going to contract it out, where you would have like an obstacle course. Well, we decided that we can DIY it ourselves. Don't ask me one of them, because I don't know how they planned it, but they did. They figured out, they made it work. Another example of this is Squid Games. We were going to contract that out. We decided to do it ourselves. We may have broken a few milk crates in the process, but we still had to do that. It's just things like that of just DIYing more events instead of contracting them out. So there's that part of it.
Our treasurer.
This is a little nitpicky. It was pointed out to me that the names under the budget for CFB were not correctly updated to reflect the updated policies and procedures and constitution. I'd like to entertain a motion to modify under the stipend section for the club funding board in update to all 4 of those positions to read vice president, president, treasurer, and secretary in that order. I yield.
All right. Is there a so moved? So moved by Senator Fisher. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Candela. Is there any discussion on the motion to change those? Senator Fisher.
This is so that it matches the current constitution with the roles, I'm assuming. Okay. I yield.
Senator Chaput.
This is under stipends, correct? I guess I could put in clarity.
Is there any more discussion? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion, we'll move into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose? And all who abstain. That passes 7-0-1. All right. We are now back into the budget as a whole. Is there any more discussion on the budget? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we'll be moving on. All right, Bill 20.
We still have to say we're tabling it to next meeting.
We do?
Yeah.
Okay. Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to table this till next meeting? We don't? It's a resolution. Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, my apologies. I take that back.
It's okay. All right, we'll be moving on. Bill 2425-11, Senator Chaput.
25-11. The purpose of this bill is to
Oh, wait, no, you can. Sorry, we just said motion to accept. So I was going to. Never mind. You could just read.
Yeah, my bad. The purpose of this bill is to fix consistency, clean up grammar mistakes and typos, and remove duplicate sections of SU policies and procedures. I yield.
All right, our president.
About changing Webb's lines, you made a new motion to change the names in CFB. You completely went over that motion. So I think we have to go back.
I thought we did.
No,
do
we
that.
were in discussion, and then suddenly we were in discussion about changing Webb's lines, and then suddenly we were in the name changing motion.
Oh.
No.
Our secretary.
No, they voted.
What?
They voted.
No. You voted on the names. You did not vote on Webb.
I'm gonna go to our pro temp.
Could you read what the vote was for the web line?
It was 8-0-0.
Okay. Would it be all right if we just moved on, and then if we didn't, we can just go back? Yeah. Did you want to say something?
We can take like a 2-minute recess.
Okay. Can you motion it for me? Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to take a 2-minute recess so we can find that?
So moved by Senator Fisher, seconded by Senator Candela. Is there any discussion on that, or do we just? Okay. Is there any discussion on taking a recess? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we'll move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, we're in a 2-minute recess.
I'll come back at 1:21.
We'll be back at 1:25.
1:21, your clock is off. Or is my clock off?
I think yours is off. before. Call back to order now at 1:25. All right. Did we read the bill? Our president.
I'm going to yield to media. Sorry, not web.
It did 800, and you go at 5 minutes and 30 seconds ago. The vote was 800 of the motion. I don't know if that's
Was that for both motions?
That was the language used is like.
Wait. Sorry. I'm trying to like get what he exact says. You say basically it's like the treasurer asks what the motion is about, and you just say the events, and then that vote's 800.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
yield.
Okay, moving on.
Did you read the entirety of the purpose? You did? Okay, cool. So you're now in discussion of the policies and procedures, grammar and typo cleanup. Is there any discussion on this bill? Our treasurer.
I'd just like to ask any representative policy committee to clarify why this is being brought forth. I'm going to yield to Senator Chaput.
When we did a whole like breakdown of the policies, right, we saw that there was a lot of like conflicting verbiage, such as you can see here, there's a lot of switchover from student government at Utica to just SGU. And along with that, if you scroll down, I know there's a lot of pages here. There's also a couple points where there's just duplicates of sections, or there's sections that are literally the same exact thing, but then they added on detail. So we just wanted to clean those sections out, A, to save space, and B, to make it more clear, because we don't want continued typos within our policies, and we definitely don't want duplicates where the second duplicate has more information in it, but is still a duplicate of the original. I yield.
Our treasurer.
I'm just making a bit of an assumption here. I just like confirmation on it. My understanding is these sections listed, those are the only sections being addressed, right? So for example, 1.1.2, which isn't within these policies, or this attachment, is just not a part of this bill. I'm going to yield to Senator Chaput.
Yeah, so all of the ones in here are getting directly touched. I didn't want to include literally our entire policies and procedures. Along with that, none of the what are they called, appendixes were also looked at for typos. I wanted to keep that separate because it was already such a long document. And then continuing on from that, there is a couple sections in here that are in here without any changes. Those are strictly kept in because they are needed to explain other changes that are put in, such as 9.4.0, which has nothing changed, but is needed to be the reason for why 9.5.0 was crossed out. I yield.
Senator Fisher.
I have a quick question. So it is the fixed typos, but my question was, I don't know if it's a good question, but who would be the one going back and fixing it? I don't know if that needs to be justified in the bill. I just assume like the exec board would, or someone from policy would. It's just not specified, so it's a little confusing. I yield.
No, that's okay. I'm going to yield to our advisors.
At this point, it's going to come to us to edit all of your documents. There has been, and no one here's fault, this year has been really, really challenging, and last year and the year before, I think there's been a lot of running documents, and Bailey spent a significant amount of time this year cleaning up to the best that we could, and I think that we have to dig a little bit deeper beyond just surface level legislation to see where some of the things ended up. There's chunks of your policies that are missing that were not passed through legislation to be missing, and in order to try to keep where we are and not lose like footing and go backwards, we're in the stage right now where we're holding your policies, and we can make any changes that are passed through legislation, and we will maintain it and keep it live and current and engage and in a document that we have. I think our hope is eventually to give it back and make sure that you guys have that control, but with some oversight and some like expectations about running documents, and you can't just assume that those are correct, because if it doesn't go through legislation, then it's not legitimate and on your books, and you know, looking back, we have to make sure that we're doing the best we can. So right now, all edits will come through us, and hopefully eventually we can get that back. But we're not there yet. I yield.
Great. Senator Chaput.
To clarify, going right on top of that, that these are that I worked off of, the document that I worked off of was currently what is listed on there, I believe, before the changes that were made last week to the policies, and I didn't touch those sections that were changed. So if, for example, there it states in there student government at Utica, I would like that to be reflected. I just didn't have those changes in time when I was working on, when, you know, we were discussing this completely and when I was writing up the bill for the policy committee. I yield.
Our advisors.
Absolutely. I wonder if it makes sense, and you guys can talk about this to see if it does, if somewhere in here or maybe somewhere in the purpose, I would have to go back and see if it says it. It's so long, I'm scrolling. Like any instances not mentioned here would also be impacted. I wonder if it makes sense to add that somewhere just so that it catches it as any other legislation is coming through, any instances. That I don't know if that makes sense, but I yield.
Senator Chaput.
So it does, in the first part under references, it says that SGU will, for all current and future occurrences within this document, solely stand for and refer to student government at Utica, and then it follows with everything, single thing of student government at Utica. I'm hoping that would cover that for that specific instance.
Our treasurer.
I have a lot of questions. Starting with the scope and the duration. The scope is not all contracting members of SGU. It would be all entities of student government and everything under student government. There are sections of our policy that address clubs, that address general students. With regards to the duration, as I'm reading it, this bill will be in effect upon Senate ratification if the policies and procedures are rewritten. It should not go into effect after the Senate ratifies it. The President does need to sign it, and until rewritten suggests that if the policies are ever rewritten, this bill would no longer be into effect, even if it was an unrelated section of policy that was rewritten. I'm going to yield to Senator Chaput.
I very much so apologize for that. This is my first time writing a bill, so I just didn't know exactly what was supposed to go into these positions. I yield.
Our President.
Can I entertain a motion to modify the duration to say this bill will be in effect upon ratification of the Senate?
So moved by Senator Chaput. And do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Zapata. Is there any discussion on the motion to change the duration? Our treasurer.
Should it not just be upon ratification, given the President also has the power to either sign or veto it? I understand that the President ratification is automatic, provided they don't sign it within a week, or don't veto it explicitly within a week, but my understanding is it doesn't immediately become policy once passed by the Senate. I'm going to yield to either our Chief Justice or our Chair, whichever one wants to answer. What was the question? Should it not be under duration upon this bill will be in effect upon ratification? Because my understanding is after the Senate passes it, it still needs to be signed by the President. Their signature is assumed to be automatic if they do not choose to veto it within a week. I don't have any past legislation to reference at hand. I'm going to yield to our President.
So I was also just making that motion to reflect the ones we did last week, as they were just about the same wording. I believe in the past, I'm going to ask our advisor in a second. I believe in the past we also had our legislation written like that, and I'm going to yield to Advisor Wadsworth.
Can you clarify for me what exactly you're trying for the scope to say?
The duration, I was going to say this bill will be in effect upon ratification of the Senate. I believe that was on par with the legislation of last year and the year prior. Is that correct?
So it previously used to say upon passage and ratification of the President. I can change it. Just, I yield.
Our President.
Can I entertain a motion to modify my duration to say this bill will be in effect upon passage of the Senate and ratification by the President?
All right. So moved by Senator Chaput. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Wu. Is there any discussion on the amendment to this motion? Senator Candela.
It was an amendment. I didn't hear the word amendment. So
it's okay. Our President.
Point of information. So I'm going to repeat it. I said this bill will be in effect upon passage of the Senate and ratification by the President.
Is there any more discussion? All right. Seeing as there is no more discussion on the amendment to modify that motion, we will move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? That passes. We are now back into the modified motion. So it reads, this bill will be in effect upon passage of the Senate and ratification by the President. Is there any more discussion on that motion? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we will move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, that passes. We are now back into the bill as a whole. Is there any more discussion? Our treasurer.
Can I entertain a motion to modify under scope instead of reading all contracted members of SGU? These policies and procedures will affect all entities that deal with student government, including its members.
So moved by Senator Chaput. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Candela. Is there any discussion on the motion to modify the scope? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we'll move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All righty, that passes. We are now back into the bill as a whole. Is there any more discussion on the bill as a whole? Our treasurer.
This, I guess, is a question partially for our advisors, partially for policy committee. With regards to capitalization, I notice under section 1.1.1 or 1.1.1, it reads SGU members with members capitalized. I see no reason for members to be capitalized, given it's not really a proper noun. Members are outlined in our Constitution. I assume it should be lowercased. To our advisors, is it appropriate for that change to simply be made, or is that something that would have to be included within this legislation?
That could just be House rules.
I'm going to yield, Chief Justice.
Yeah, that would be House rules, because that's just grammar. But you are correct. Since members is a plural improper noun, that is referring to an abstract concept rather than specific individuals, it would be lowercase.
Right. Our treasurer.
Does that also include punctuation? I'm just noting under section 1.1.3, there's a missing period. Would that also fall into House rules?
Yes, because it doesn't change the meaning. Yeah, it doesn't change the meaning of the document. Whereas spelling it out and then going to the letter, like just saying SGU, that would technically change the meaning. And that's also why that footer was added at the top. Does that make sense? Okay, our treasurer.
I understand that our advisors are currently the keeper of our documents insofar as edits made, but given my understanding is it's either the chief of staff or the secretary with the power to correct these errors, I would just like to formally ask either of our advisors, whichever one is going to be updating this legislation, should it be passed, to include the secretary in the room when these changes are made, given it's also a little improper for our advisors to be making modifications to our governing documents when that's not outlined within our policies. And I'm going to yield back to the chair.
Senator Chaput.
I'd just like to also point out this would fall under House rules, but just because it's not highlighted in here, it might be skipped over. There is in 1.4.2, there's a period F at the very end of it, just to remove that. I yield.
Our treasurer.
And this is really just more to add on to the secretary and chief of staff's plate, but my understanding of acronyms is that you would not refer to it as the SGU, it would just be SGU. If we can come to at least a consistent settling on this point, because from what I can see, there's some differences, right? If you look at 1.1.1, it just says for all SGU members, where it should presumably be for all of the SGU members, if you were including that but then, immediately afterwards, 1.1.3, it says members of the SGU. I yield.
All right. Is there any more discussion for the bill as a whole? Senator Fisher.
Another thing for House Rule up. And one sec, 3.5.0, there is where it says the Director of Wellness and Inclusion will function as an administrator for the additional inclusive and accessible practice throughout all of the student SGU and its subsidiaries. There is a double period.
Our pro tem.
Motion to push open form back to 155.
All right. We have a motion to push back open form to 155. Do we have a second? Seconded by Senator Wu. Is there any discussion on pushing back open form? All right. Seeing as there is no discussion, we'll move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, that passes. We are now back into the bill as a whole. Senator Chaput.
So besides the House rule things, I know there's probably maybe one or two other periods and things followed around. I would just like to focus on things that are actually major changes for the reason why this bill was put in. Sections 13.3 being removed, sections 15.9.7 being added in with 15.9.1 and 15.9.2 being removed, stuff like that. I'd like to have just asked that discussion is focused on that just for the time being.
Thank you.
I yield.
Our president.
Are we in a motion right now?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Right? No, we're in the bill as a whole.
Can I entertain a motion to replace SG policies and procedures in attachments to the actual link rather than a hyperlink within a PDF?
Sorry, I want to see this for myself. No. Never mind. It's not going to let me. All right.
So the attachments under the bill are a hyperlink rather than a direct line of text of this is the link you're going to. I was suggesting we do this because in the past there was discussion of, well, in the case that it's printed out, then you can't really click on a link on a piece of paper that is printed out. So if it's a direct link, you know exactly where it's going to, you know how to get there. You can actually type it out. If it's printed, say 5 years from now, someone's looking at the documents like, what the heck is this? It's just underlined. It's more for that purpose. You can go back and actually look at what it was.
So moved by Senator Chaput for your motion to change that. Do you want to repeat it?
It was a motion to modify under attachments, SG policies and procedures, change it from text saying SG policies and procedures to be a link to the policies and procedures directly from Engage as listed under the hyperlink.
And seconded by Pro Temp Mavros. We are now in discussion for that motion. Is there any discussion for that?
Just for future, I don't know exactly how Engage works when it comes to hyperlinks. I don't know if we change the document going forward, the hyperlink itself changes, is the only worry I would have there. And that's a technological worry. I yield.
Our president.
So I'm agreeing with you. It may not take us where we need to in the future, but I'm going from the perspective of record keeping of, oh, this was on Engage. This was here at this time. So we know like actually what it was when. Like if we go back and look at budgets from, I think like 22, 23, we still have like spreadsheet, Google Sheets links to spreadsheets where they'd be. I don't know if they're still active. I don't know if we have access to them anymore. But we can still look and say, okay, this was a spreadsheet link. We know where this went. We know what the giant string of numbers at the end was. It's more for record keeping, and also if it was printed out currently so that it's actually reflected properly.
In that case, could we, this is me not asking, not making a motion or an annotation of a motion. Would it be better to just do SG policies and procedures, comma, and then the link? So then you still have both, the best of both worlds, Hannah Montana, you know? Okay. Sweet. All right. I would like to entertain an amendment to the motion to say SGU policies and procedures, comma, and then a link to where it came from instead of a hyperlink. So moved by Senator Chaput and seconded by Senator Wu. All right, we are now in discussion for that amendment. Is there any discussion for that? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we will move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, that passes. We are now back into the modified motion. Is there any discussion?
So point of clarity, I just have the full thing stated out right now.
Yeah. So under attachments, it would be, the motion would be to change attachments instead of having SGU policies and procedures, have it read SGU policies and procedures, comma, and then a link to Engage. Like a direct link, so like the whole HTTPS. Is there any discussion? Or is there any more discussion on this motion? we will move into. Okay. We will move into voting. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent? All right, that passes. We are now into the bill as a whole. Senator Fisher.
14.0 and then the subsection 2014.2. I do not see a section 2014.1. I don't know if that would be changed to 1, because technically that looks like it is the very first subsection of that section.
So the subsections that aren't there weren't included because there was no change. No, it's okay. It was mentioned earlier, but that's all right. Is there any more discussion for the bill as a whole? Our treasurer.
Just to clarify, and I think it's possible Senator already addressed this, but forgive me, I didn't quite understand. 11.7.0, that would, excluding the edit made within this bill, right, to modify student government at Utica to SGU, it would remain per what we passed 2 weeks ago. Is that the updated version? Because my understanding is that wasn't yet put in. Yielding back to Senator Putt.
This is the updated version. This was the one that, this was the bill that was, this was the paper that I got was the bill directly after passing, I believe. This is the updated dress and casual business attire bill.
Okay.
I believe, to my understanding.
To yours. Okay.
I yield.
Right. Senator Fisher.
On the table.
Yeah, you can call the question.
Well,
Or you can.
well, it's a bill. We're not voting on it.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. Do we have a? Sorry.
It still is a call to question.
Okay, can I motion to call the question?
Seconded by Senator Chaput. Is, you don't need discussion, right? All in favor for a call to question, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. Moving on. Oh, wait, no. That's for the call to question. Now we do it to move on. All right, all in favor of moving on, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. All right, moving on, Bill 2425-10. Senator Wu.
Motion to accept Bill number 2425-10.
You don't need a motion just because a committee submitted the bill, so you could just read it.
The purpose of this bill is to remove Article 26 from the Policies and Procedures and alter Article 11. The end goal is to minimize policy redundancy and properly address the needs of SGU members.
Senator Chaput.
I'd just like to make a motion to add in to the outline purpose, not under the purpose with the period, but the upper one, to state and alter Article 11 and 6.
Seconded by Senator Wu. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing as there is no discussion, we will move into voting. All in favor, please raise your hand. All who oppose, and all who abstain. That passes 8-0-0. We are now in discussion on the bill as a whole. Is there any discussion? Senator Wu.
So basically what we did is everything we discussed last time, we tabled it back to policy committee, we made the edits, and these are all the things that you had concerns about, like privacy, talking to your supervisor. So now that's just all included. I yield.
Is there any more discussion? Our treasurer.
Per the director's contracts, they are expected to be present at every Senate meeting. Do you think it makes sense to include this under 11.6.0?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Per the director's contracts, they are expected to be present at all Senate meetings. Does it make sense to include them under 11.6.0, given that is the expectation on their end, so it should be the expectation for the meeting as a whole?
Yeah, that makes sense. Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to modify the first sentence of 11.6.0 to say, all student government Utica executives, cabinet members, senators, and a representative from each organization must be present at every meeting unless a valid excuse has been submitted to the secretary.
All right. So moved by Senator Wu. Do I have a second? Seconded by Pro Temp Mavros. Is there any discussion on that motion? Senator Chaput?
Where within that sentence was changed? I apologize.
In 11.6.0, after all student government at Utica executives, comma, you would add in all cabinet members, comma, and then it would continue as regular.
So point of clarity, cabinet members would include our Chief Justice, it would include our College Council, our Chief of Staff, our Res Life, no, not Res Life Rep. It would include our directors and, yeah, just Chief Justice, directors, Vice Treasurer, and College Council, as well as the executives and our advisors.
Our Treasurer.
To that point, despite the fact that we handled the election for College Council, I don't think we're able to mandate that they show up at this meeting because our College Council is not, strictly speaking, an officer of student government. College Council is an outside SUNY thing, so I would just be a little careful with the wording there. I yield.
Our advisors.
I absolutely support that. I was going to say the same thing. My hand went up, but I saw yours go up, so I thought maybe we're on the same page. They're not accountable to SGU in the College Council position. If anything, it's the reverse, but we can't hold them accountable to mandate them to be at every meeting. The expectation is that they want to be here, and they should, but there's no repercussions if they don't. So I yield.
Our President.
Can I entertain a motion to modify my original motion to exclude at the end, add additional sentence to say the College Council is not required to be at this meeting?
Do I have a so moved? So moved by Senator Chaput. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Wu. We are now in discussion of that amendment to the motion.
Sorry, can I change my wording without amending
go
it?
for it.
These meetings, just to be a little more correct, because it is talking about multiple meetings in 11.6.0.
All right. Does that make sense to you guys? You're so both on board? Okay, sweet. Great. Our Pro Temp.
Is this partially already covered by Section 6.4? I yield.
Our Treasurer.
There are two different articles, right? 6.4, the article's name isn't specified, but it's
contracts.
It is contract. It is contracts. But 11.6 outlines the Senate business meetings. If we are putting in the expectation that people are held to within the Senate business meetings, which altogether I don't necessarily think is a wise thing to do, then I think we should be thorough in doing so. I yield.
Is there any more discussion to the amendment for this motion? All right. Seeing as, our Pro Temp.
So with that being said, it wouldn't make a bit more sense to just reword 11.6 to read all student government Utica members who are required to attend the Senate business meeting? I yield.
Our Treasurer.
Feels a little redundant, because then you're basically saying all student government officers, right, or members who are expected to attend the Senate meeting are required to attend the Senate meeting. You're essentially stating something that's already known. For that to make sense, my personal recommendation would be cutting it all together, but I am not a policymaker. I'm going to yield to Wildcat Media.
We have 30 seconds to open forum.
Point of information, what would happen if we move into open forum during this? Are we going to stay in this, or like how does that work?
You'd probably have to go straight in the open forum, right? Yep.
So next week, you would be done.
Yeah, but would it be within this motion, or would it be start of the base? Okay.
Our Treasurer.
Just point of information, can we get that motion down on paper if it's not already so we know exactly what the wording is? It's possible our secretary's already gotten that, and if she has, we're all good, but because we are starting open forum in 5, I yield to the chair.
I'm just going to wait for this clock to turn because I think it'd be funny. All right, cool. Now we're now in open forum. All right. Does anyone have anything for open forum? Our Chief Justice.
One quick comment I wanted to make, and I should make it clear that failure to adhere to this will result in nothing. You have the right to vote as you see fit. But as a senator, your job is to represent the various interests and opine on the various concepts that are on the floor. And as a senator, you should be very, very, very rarely abstaining. Your job is to have an opinion and to represent the opinions and interests of the students that you have been selected and voted by. And abstaining is basically saying, hey, I'm not going to do my job. I don't think, you're either saying, I am not fit to vote here, or you are saying, my people have zero opinion. If you feel that you don't have enough information to vote, ask questions, inquire. But as a senator, you should be voting as much as you reasonably can. I yield.
Thank you. Our audience member.
I just want to make, this mic always is horrible, but I just want to make a little, my opinion known about how polling hours have been done this time around, because I've done this this is my 4th year doing polling hours, and I just want to say that this time around, I think has been the worst time for polling hours, purely because of how limiting the time slots have been for availability. I know I am a very busy person. I'm doing 4 classes along with a capstone this semester that take up a lot of my time just in class work. I also have I have these meetings, I have SDU media meetings, I have a lot of stuff that I do. And in previous years, when I was able to choose very specific hour-by-hour times to do my polling hours, I could easily get them done, because let's say that the only time I had available was to do it from, in this building from 4 to 6. I was able to very specifically say from 4 to 6 on this day, I come in here and I do my polling hours. This system this year has been very limiting to me, where I've had to select not coming to this meeting, and I'm going to have to now skip out on my Wildcat Media meeting to do my polling hours. I don't want to do that, but in fear of getting struck for not doing polling hours, I have to do that. So I just wanted to make that very much known.
Yeah, I can talk to you after this, and I apologize for that. That's my fault. Wildcat Media.
Also, in regards to polling hours, there was no QR codes, no posters that we have at the polling table. I had to direct people polling to engage, which the average student, SUNY Poly student, will get lost trying to find the election, and therefore less likely to vote. I'd either have to make my own QR code, which I did for a little bit, or in the past, it just, even last semester, we had, at web events, we had the poster with the QR code on the table. It would have been amazing to have that again, and if the election's still going on, to do that for the people with polling hours, to keep it on those tables where the polling hours will be on the board behind it, so the pollers can take it off the polling and show people. That is how you get people to vote, with easy accessibility. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Senator Candela.
There is a bin in the SU lounge full of a whole bunch of QR codes and information for polling and tabling. I yield.
Not all of us have access to the SGU lounge. Sometimes you guys are in there, but there's also times when you guys aren't. So how do we get to it?
I'm gonna go back to Wildcat Media.
Also, for my org members, this was never, that box of QR codes and stuff was never the information, the communication was lost. That wasn't told to me, so I can tell my org members when they go pick them up. It would be nice to just even, send an email with a graphic, so they can just pull it up on their computer and be scan this. But yeah, I don't.
Our audience member.
So I have 2 things. First thing does have to actually do with the election. I'm sorry for bringing up more election stuff. I've noticed, at least this was a problem that happened with my bio, but I'm not sure what happened to other people's bios. Formatting was not kept in between putting the bio and then putting it in the actual election. Because, for example, my bio had multiple paragraphs, but when it got put in, it all just got combined into one block of text, and that has actually affected people's votes. Because at least I've been told 2 people at least saw that wall of text, and probably my fault because the bio's too long, but since it was a wall of text, not neatly paragraphed like it originally was, they just instantly then stopped reading it and then even give me a chance. So please, in future, or maybe you still can, keep the formatting the same. Is the reason why it's formatted like that in the first place. Second thing too is, I mean, I appreciate like Web has a really good step here, but the chairs are way too close to the camera. I had to go around the entire chair setting just to access this microphone due to having crutches. And there's a chance that this probably would, you know, I'm currently the only person here, and this is a temporary disability, but for other people who do have disabilities, that might be a bit problematic because that's a very tight space in between the camera and the microphone. That's all.
Our president.
Okay, I'm going to add a few things. So my understanding is that we have facilities that sets up the tables and the chairs.
Oh, okay.
It's not media that sets those
My
up. The other part is I was going to ask the election discussion really quick. I was going to ask our election chair, but I don't really think I have to. I just wanted to add in my comment. I was hoping that the election chair and election committee reached out to the orgs and whoever was tabling to say, hey, we have posters here. You can grab them whenever. If you need a copy, please let us know ahead of time. The office hours are this time. I'm a little sad to hear that it wasn't done, and I hope it's done in the future. And I'm going to yield to our treasurer.
So Engage hates line breaks. Anytime, pretty much any single form that you put a line break into, it's going to take it out. I'm sure some of y'all who are club treasurers have seen this with purchase requests. I know I certainly have. You might have put in a nice formatted list with tabs and spaces and all of that, and then it all just gets crunched together into a block of text. That's a limitation on Engage's side. That's not something that was done by election committee to my knowledge. I'm going to yield to Wildcat Media.
Is it possible to tell facilities to not put the chairs up? Because we come in, the camera has to be over the outlet. Usually in the past, the chairs have been in the back, but they've slowly been inching up every week to the point where a couple of weeks ago, like, the camera hit the back of my chair. Like, the camera had to be set up to the back of the chair, and, like, the back of the other org head chairs were very close to the chairs of the legs behind it. Like, I don't know if that's something that can be told to facilities to, like, hey, you know, the chairs don't have to be, like, up our butts. Thank you. Like, I yield to the president.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I think, did you have something else?
How bad do you want it? All right, I rescind my motion to adjourn.
Senator Chabot.
I thought for the election thing, wasn't there a limit for 150 words for the bio, or was that specifically for senator?
I'm going to yield to our advisors.
That last part, I'm
Yeah, sorry, my bad. I was kind of mumbling. I remember for filling out the bio for senator, that was 150 words cap. If it was more for this election, I would have liked to know that because I was under the assumption I could only do 150 words.
That is a really fair point. We had students email us bios as well. The form was very rough this year. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the elections chair, so if you want to take over, just interject at any point. We can certainly add that for the future for all, but we didn't do that this time, and that is, I think, a fault on our part. We can look at it for next semester. I yield.
Our president.
Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Seconded by Senator Chabot. And, wait, no. So moved by Senator Chabot, seconded by Senator Candela. Does anyone oppose unanimous consent?